And we are live. Thanks everybody for coming back for another debate. We're able to reach out to Prohfit here, second time appearance on the stream. Thank you for showing up, Prohfit. And the first time appearance by Goose. Thank you for coming in, Goose, and having this discussion and this debate with us. We really appreciate both of your guys' time. Today, Goose is taking the stance of capitalism, and Prohfit is taking the stance of socialism, and they're going to be discussing and debating which is better. Before we get on that certain topic, though, let's watch the intro. All right, Goose, you're taking the capitalist side on this one. Why don't you go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself, and go ahead with your opening statement.
All right, I'm Goose. I'm up here in Montana. I started a company about 5 years ago, hauling campers and boats across country. It's a little business I started for myself. So I got across country about 100 times in 4 years. Hit almost every city and went in and picked up certain product or certain inventory. And so I got to talk to a lot of people in a lot of cities. And I wasn't really political up until about 5 years ago. Didn't pay attention, really didn't vote. Couldn't have told you what a difference between a liberal or a conservative was 5 years ago. And since then, I've had a lot of time to just dive in, and I went down about every rabbit hole a guy could possibly go. I wanted to dig into, what was the Democrat Party about? What is the Republican Party about? Every rabbit hole a guy could. And I started digging into it a lot, and I realized real quickly that capitalism was pretty much one of the greatest tools that made the greatest country in America. It gives you free market, free enterprise. It gives you incentive to, if you work hard and you got a good product to put out there, you can make money and you can reap and get wealthy and get ahead in life. People from all over the world can come here with nothing, and with capitalism, they can work hard and actually make something of themselves. And so I really started digging into that. As usual, government's gotten too big. You got your crony capitalism, and you got a lot of organizations that abuse the system. I think the founding fathers' ideas for capitalism was good. Like everything else, it got what's the word I'm looking for? It got abused. But then I started looking at, I started hearing about socialism. And so I started going, well, what is socialism? Had no idea. And I started looking into, well, what are some of the countries that were socialist countries? I come to find out there was about 27 countries the last couple of hundred years, and all their countries have failed miserably. It all ended up with everybody being very poor, eating their own cats and dogs, nobody rich except for the very slim few up at the top. And I started looking more into socialism, and it sounded good because, you get free healthcare, you get free schooling, you get free this, free that. But you quickly realize there's nothing for free in life, and that the government does not giveth without taketh first. And so you start realizing this whole income equality where everybody gets a paycheck, whether they work or not, that quickly sounds good and works good for a short amount of time. But then all of a sudden, the people that are working hard realize that they're paying a lot of money away and not getting anywhere, so they stop working as hard. The people that weren't working, that are just getting a paycheck, they're not trying to better themselves. The next thing you know, you got a society where the hard workers aren't producing a lot of goods, and now they're not producing a lot of tax revenue. So now all of a sudden, there's no money to be to be thrown around to everybody, and in a short amount of time, everybody's really broke. The government's got full control over where you live, where you work, and then we're all, take a look at Venezuela. 20 years ago, they were the third richest country in the world. They had everything. They enacted socialism, and in 20 years, a very slim few at the top have a lot of money and a lot of wealth, and the whole other country's eating their dogs, and they're sitting in bread lines and are all wanting to get out of there to come to America. So that's pretty much, I guess, my gist of socialism and capitalism. I mean, free market, free enterprise is capitalism. Socialism just kind of discourages any incentive, discourages independence and personal responsibility. And in the long run, we're all going to suffer from it. So I guess that's my spiel. Did we lose Jared?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there he is.
There we go. Hey, pizza is good for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excuse me. That's why I turned the camera off, because I didn't want to eat on camera. Yeah, no, that's good, Goose. Prohfit, if you want to rebuke that, or start off with your opening statement.
Yeah, I'll kind of just explain where I'm at and why I support what I support. So my name is Prohfit, and I have background. I'm an activist out here in the community in Southern California, and essentially I have some college background. I also had my own business as well. Ran a recording studio for about 4 years, and my partners ended up having conflict, and so that collapsed as things do. But it was a really good experience. I learned how to put find something you love and put time, effort, and make some money at it, and start building opportunities for people. And in that sense, I do love some of the things that capitalism provides. Those opportunities, those ambitions, and being able to seize upon that. I think that that's very admirable. And I, in a personal level, if I was talking to an individual who was struggling right now, I would tell them to push past whatever struggles they have and to strive for that eventuality, or to strive for something greater than themselves in creating a business or finding a business that they could work for and feel proud of. The problem, well, I won't get into the problem with capitalism yet. Essentially, my view with socialism is that we need more opportunities and more control over our own lives. When you go into certain fields and you start working for certain businesses, most businesses, you have little to no control over a majority of your life or a large portion of your life. For 8 hours, you're essentially under the heel of the person above you. That I believe in democracy. I believe in the freedom of being able to have a say in what goes on in your life. I don't believe in authoritarianism. And I believe that we should have the opportunity to change that reality if something in our workplace is not helping us, or it's hindering our lives. A real key here when we're talking about socialism is the definition. What is socialism? Socialism is not the government doing stuff. A lot of people think that to have a socialist economy, you have to have a strong government. And in a lot of the systems that have been created that call themselves socialist, you have the Chinese government, You have the USSR, as some of the key examples. North Korea as one of the more horrific. Well, they're all kind of horrific, but one of the currently terrible organizations at this point. I would argue that those aren't actual socialist governments. Socialism itself is literally defined as the workers owning the means of production in a simple form. And there are many types of ways of achieving that. I personally believe in an anti-authoritarian version. So market socialism is one of the means to achieve that on the economic side, and then that fits into my libertarian socialist philosophy. So we need to focus on worker control of the means of production. In China, in the USSR, and North Korea, you essentially took away the capitalist owners of the means of production, the means of production being the tools and property used to produce a product. You took it away from capitalists and gave it to an elite political class. And then you erased all forms of democracy within that elite political class, created a one-party system, and essentially made it so that there was no opposition to that force. And when we talk about socialism, I think it's very important that any socialist who doesn't believe in that fights that almost as hard or just as hard as they fight the capitalist system. We cannot afford to go into an authoritarian regime. So I think that capitalism does have its good points. I do think it has killed lots and lots of people. I think it has made situations really difficult for individuals, and I think that it was a huge improvement over feudalism. So we had feudalism, then we moved up to like mercantile capitalism, and now we have laissez-faire capitalism, which I think is an improvement on mercantile capitalism. I just want to make a further improvement to our system by introducing market socialism. And that's essentially where I stand.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's
unpack there.
That sounds good. I think in our perfect world, less government on either side would be great. I think on both sides, it's inevitable that our government's gotten too big due to the greed and the power that so many of those people in Washington want. And that's why capitalism has started to fail, because we've got so much greed and bureaucrats and lobbyists. I just know one thing, that you can't really give me one socialist country that hasn't failed miserably. And countries like Sweden and Denmark, they're not a socialist country. They have socialist policies, but they actually run on a capitalist agenda. But if you look back in history, there's not been one socialist country that was socialist that is now prospering. And a lot of people, millions and millions of people, have died because they end up taking your freedoms, your guns, your freedom, and it just doesn't work in the long run. At least capitalism has lasted this long. Now, if we can find a way to limit our government, I think that's our common thing here is our government's out of control with their spending. $2 trillion package, and they say like 16% of that's actually going to America and COVID deals. That's a lot of money going overseas for gender studies, and they're supporting a pipeline over in the Middle East, and supporting giving $5 million to Sudan to build a wall, but yet our country doesn't want to give, and we're all paying for this. That's the one thing that a lot of people, I don't think, in this country realize. They're just tuned out to all of our government crap. But we're paying for all this. Yeah, we get our $600 or $1,000, but it's really going to cost every last one of us $5,000 to pay it back. And so a lot of it's our government. We've got to start realizing. I think we've kind of gone asleep the last 20, 30 years and got complacent and just didn't really care and didn't think it mattered. And now we've got a bunch of people that do not have America in this interest. It's quite obvious. I mean, Joe Biden has came out and admitted America First is now squashed. I mean, that blows my mind that someone would come out and preach America First is squashed, and we're gonna let 5,000 illegal aliens in our country a day, unchecked, untested, and then we're gonna give them $3,200 a month. Well, that's our money. And they're getting $3,200 a month for nothing.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you say, you have a problem with government overreach. And I think that there are issues with government, certain regulations getting too much, with certain cases of, corruption and them giving out handouts to certain organizations that don't need to have handouts, or spending too much money on X and when they could do it more efficiently, and so on and so forth. I do see that as a problem. But me as a libertarian socialist, I see two threats to our freedom. Government, which I think we agree on, and then I see the capitalist class, or big business, not necessarily small business, but I see big industrial, like multinational corporations, national corporations, as a huge threat to our way of life and our freedom and our ability to do what we do in daily life. I personally put those corporations as a bigger threat than the government. But do you agree with the first statement? And if you put the government ahead of corporations, where do you how would you describe that?
That's a good question. That is a good question. I don't know which is a bigger evil or a problem for us right now. And I think you're kind of describing what they call crony capitalism, and that's capitalism abused. And there's a lot of that going on. Too much, way too much of it. So you're very right on that. It's not what our founding forefathers had envisioned the system how to work. To me, I just wish more people would get engaged in their local politics. I think for so long that we didn't make the school, we didn't make it to the school board meetings, or the parent teacher conferences, or the city council meetings, and we have allowed a lot of people that really don't have the people's best interest in positions of power. So I think it starts with people getting engaged. I don't see it a lot. I mean, I see a lot of people more engaged, I guess, but still not going to the parent teacher conference meetings and the city council.
They're learning, but they're not doing the work. Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the life that the global elites have kind of pushed on us. I mean, I believe they've had a plan for about 100 years to take complete control and power over all of us. And it started with taking over the media, then then taking over the education system, and then final it up with taking over your health system. And we all know by now that schools are pretty much not teaching our kids the basic knowledge of life and how to get by in life. They're teaching them how to kind of be oppressed and be a victim. And America's just this racist, bad country. And
I would disagree. And I would pose like a counter to that. I do think our school system is inherently messed up. I think it's a lot of things have been taken out of our school system that really does hinder us. I agree that it doesn't teach enough life skills. We should teach more trades. We should, teach people how to do their own damn taxes, I think is an important thing, so that we're not all beholden to H&R Block. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
don't think talking about anal sex and transgenderism in 5th grade is doing a lot of good.
well, I mean, personally, I'm more libertarian in that sense. I think that, those things are okay. And I mean, I don't know about teaching I don't know what definitions of how far you should go in teaching. I do think that like teaching students about general sex ed is probably one of the best ways to end pedophilia. I
Yeah,
think that
we all had that when we were in like 7th grade, back in the
right,
day. We had that one
right,
class.
and they don't now. Like a lot of that has been defunded, cut. So like a lot of kids, they go into high school, they don't know anything about how their bodies work. Um, you know, and then like their creepy uncle like starts messing with them and they don't know what's right, what's wrong. They're not able to tell their parents exactly what happened and they don't know what abuse is. So these things, it becomes easier to abuse kids because the kids don't know anything. So I think we have to be careful when we talk about not having or reducing sex ed.
Yeah.
You know, so that
I think
our
our parents
go ahead.
our parents I think in general got pretty busy leading up into the 80s. Credit cards, we all started outside our means. The 90s, we both had to start working. No time for the kids. Introduced internet and video games.
Absolutely.
And now, we've got a society that's too busy to give our kids a lot of time. And
Well,
then
and
our schools jump in and start.
I think what you just described right there is a product of capitalism. It's a product of the profit motive. I think that, if we're so busy on our video games, that means more video games are getting sold. The more time we spend on our video games, the more they can sell us advertising, or they can sell advertising on those games for other industries to take advantage of. Essentially, our school system was originally set up to train factory workers, right? You have your bell system, you have your sit in your desk, your own little space, you get paperwork, do paperwork, turn in paperwork, and you get project, do project, turn in project. That was all to produce people that are prepared for factory work. Then we moved into um like service work, and our school system never addressed that. And now we're moving into a gig economy, and our school system's not addressing that. So we have an issue with a school system that's producing people that aren't prepared for life. And essentially now the capitalist system is encouraging us to teach people to be consumers, good consumers that have enough knowledge to press the button and do the thing, go work at McDonald's and flip a burger. But we don't want to teach you how to learn. We don't want to teach you how to know that the system is corrupt. We don't want to teach you how to, they got rid of civics, for God's sake. They don't want you to know how your system can be changed. They don't want you to know how revolutions have happened. They don't want you to know how social movements have started. They don't want you to know how to organize. So they just want you to be smart enough to do the things they want and to buy a bunch of crap. And as long as you keep doing that, then capitalism stays happy. The people who are getting more money get more money, and they suck it out of our pocketbooks. They teach us to not save, to spend, to do things on credit. You brought up credit cards. I mean, that's literally banks taking advantage of capitalism. And so, I
right there, you said it. They're taking advantage of capitalism. So the actual tool of capitalism isn't a bad thing. It's been taken advantage of. And I'm a firm believer that it's the global elites that have been in charge for hundreds of years. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Pasteurs, the DuPonts, those people, they've had one grand plan, and it has nothing to do with capitalism or socialism, really. It has to do with taking complete control and power over all of us in one shape, way, or form. And I've learned that in the last, like in the 70s, I learned this in Chicago from a businessman when I was over in Chicago. He was telling me about how this welfare state, LBJ, right after Kennedy, he had a famous saying that he said, we'll have these N-words eating out of the palm of our hands for the next 200 years.
right.
Well, they incorporated the welfare state. They pretty much told all these black ladies to have children, and we're going to take care of you. We're going to pay you good money for each children. But the only rule was you can't have a black man under the house. Otherwise, your benefits go out the window. So what did that do? That made a bunch of black women have a bunch of children with no fathers. The black man had to finagle underneath the system to see the kids or be in the house. So he learned how to, made it easier to start drug dealing and doing stuff under the table because they couldn't be on the books. Otherwise, they wouldn't get their welfare. So they've kind of bamboozled the black population by thinking, here, the government's going to help you. We're going to give you just enough money to survive. And you can't because the country is racist. But here, we're just going to keep you here and keep giving you. Now, Chicago, they're entitled to a flat screen and an Xbox and a cell phone just to keep them happy. And little do they know, the black population's been getting bamboozled by the Democrat Party forever.
So question then: if the Democratic Party, just a question, if the Democratic Party, and I'm only a Democrat, in registration because we don't have ranked choice voting. And if I vote for anything else, then a Republican gets in. And if you vote for anything other than a Republican, then a Democrat gets in. And that's the shitty system that we have right now.
Exactly. Agreed.
I would rather be, a Peace and Freedom Party member, to be honest.
Agreed.
So
I wish we could have a one-party system. A one-party system with term limits, kind of American first, with term limits and no bureaucrats and no lobbyists.
I would more argue for like a 15-party system, but I think we're kind of, approaching it from two different sides, but coming to like a similar thing where there's as much free choice between people as possible.
Yeah, they've definitely got a monopoly. I mean, it's either one or the other, whether you like it or not. And I've come to the conclusion, my study in the last 4 years, I've looked back in the past, a lot of study and a lot of looking into it. And they're definitely the same team. I think they're kind of a good cop, bad cop for the most part. But for the most part, the Republicans seem like they don't know how to fight. They just kind of go along with everything, and they try to go with the Constitution. And what I found with the Democrat Party, for the most part, I've been searching for something that's good about the Democrat Party for America. I've asked this question almost every week for 4 straight years. I've yet to get an answer. What do they do that's good for America? And I started looking into it, and they were mainly the majority of the slave owners. They were the ones that founded KKK. They're the ones that started the welfare state in all the cities. And then I started looking at all of our cities. And did you know the first Republican ran city in America is the 21st most populated city? That's Oklahoma City, just over 1 million people. So our top 20 cities have democratically ran for the last 30, 40, and 50 years. And you start all the poorly they ran, the Democrats aren't doing a very good job.
So, I mean, I do think it is important that we do talk about, like, if we're talking about the political parties, right? we should talk about, the Southern strategy of the Republicans and how they essentially changed a lot of their philosophy around the 60s. So around LBJ, a lot of the Republican philosophy has changed. And the Democratic Party started changing when there were, because Teddy Roosevelt created the Bull Moose Progressive Party, right? He was a Republican, stood for protecting our environment, protecting natural land, breaking up businesses, breaking up. He was a trust buster. My favorite, or one of my favorite Republicans. And if the Republican Party was the party of Teddy Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln, I'd be a part of it. The problem, and so he left the Republican Party, formed the Bull Moose Party, which was the Progressive Party, which I would, I like a lot of what they fought for. They then ended up joining the Democratic Party under FDR, who had a progressive vice president. And FDR, while he did, some horrible shit when it comes to the Japanese internment camps, did a lot of amazing things for America. And I mean, from the New Deal, hiring tons of people to pull us out of the Great Depression, building dams, bridges, roads, just massive investment in infrastructure. Brilliant. He also helped create Social Security, which I think is a very good program that we have. It's like one of the few things that we have that actually does help the middle class and poor people as they get older. I think having Social Security is amazing. I'm glad that we have it here in America. He increased funding of public schools, and public schools did a lot better after FDR. So he did a lot of good things. He was a Democrat. So I would say, like, there's that. Then, I mean, personally, I like Jimmy Carter. Some of the things that Jimmy Carter did, I mean, when he left office, he put up solar panels on the White House. Like, he was ready to invest in things back when, had we continued to have Jimmy Carter and, people of that same ideology, we probably would have addressed climate change before it became what it is now. And we would have been able to have a slower transition rather than now we're in a shit situation where we have to do something fast and it's going to, be chaotic.
Well,
So
actually, that whole climate change, global warming thing is pretty much a ploy for the global elites to get rich and tax us out our butts. I mean, it's been proven. I fell for it back in 2000, and a guy put it pretty intelligently years back. He says, if there was really global level rise and this big crisis, bankers would not be selling property on oceanfront property like in Florida. And right now, that's the most going real estate right now. Banks would not sell. And if anybody knew that was really true, that our ocean levels were going to rise, they wouldn't be selling oceanfront property in Florida, because that would be a bad deal for them. So I fell for that with Al Gore when he said that we were going to have 2 feet of extra water, and we'd have. I live up in Montana, Glacier National Park, and they actually had to take the signs down that the snow was receding because it didn't recede. And so they actually had to take all their signs down. I think it's more of a ploy. Yes, do I care about the climate and do we need to recycle and be mindful of everything climate? Yes, for sure, guaranteed. And that, I'm all for that. But I really truly think, just like take, for example, Joe Biden cutting that pipeline. Well, we're still going to get the oil, but now we're going to have trains and trucks carry the
right.
gas.
The pipeline, to be fair, the pipeline was not canceled because of climate change. I'm sure he might have used some of that rhetoric, to appease people who are for climate change. But the fact is, that's not going to address climate change. The reason why it was important to not have the Dakota Access Pipeline is because of the abuses that installing it enacted on native land. That was my problem with it.
That's a debate. Really, Warren Buffett, really what it was Warren Buffett owns Burlington Northern Railroad, and Joe Biden hooked his crony buddies up to make.
Well, I'm talking about the protesters. I'm talking about, the Dakota protesters, the natives, that were getting hit with water cannons and tear gas in below freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
I trust the natives when they're saying, like, hey, our treaty's being broken yet again, and we need to defend our land. I support that. So, when it comes down to whether or not there was private business, influence on Joe Biden making that decision or not, sure. But when it comes down to the actual decision, we needed to not break yet another treaty with the natives there. And I think that was the right thing to do for that reason. If we were talking about climate change, and if we were getting rid of oil pipelines because of climate change, we should be getting rid of the really old pipelines that exist, that are rusty, that are more likely to burst, that are going to cause a lot of damage to the ecosystem. There's thousands and thousands of pipelines all up and down America that are not up to the standard that they need to be. And so if we're going to talk about getting rid of pipelines, I'd more be on board with that.
Yeah.
If we're talking about an ecological.
It's more of a ploy than anything. This world's been around for billions of years. It's going to be around for billions more. Can we help out ourselves? Yes. And we are. We're actually a very clean country. We're one of the cleanest countries in the world now. If we were really worried about this whole climate crisis, we would start locking down China, and because they it's so much pollution.
Absolutely.
They built 60 coal plants last year in China all over the country. So, but getting back to socialism and capitalism. So in my last 4 years, all I've heard is Democrat Party pushing a socialist agenda. And so I started looking into that, and I was like, okay, so what's the advantage here? What are they want open borders, which I adamantly disagree. They want to just let illegals come over and get free stuff when they're illegal. They want to raise our taxes so we can get all this free health care and free this. They want to eliminate debt for college students. We're all paying for this. They want to take our guns away, or at least apply major regulations.
Socialists do not want to take guns.
Well, the Democrat Party's proven.
Yeah, they're not socialists, my friend.
Well, that's all, AOC and the whole squad.
Right. They are the closest thing to socialists in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has been anti-socialist for a long time. They have been it's been neoliberalism. They've been run by neoliberal order. And then you have essentially social democrats. So like AOC, Bernie Sanders, they call themselves democratic socialists. They're not even full. They're not even, they're closer to, like you were saying with Sweden, and the Nordic countries. Those countries are social democracies, and Bernie Sanders and AOC are social democrats that are using the term socialism because the term of socialism is going to be used against them no matter what. So they're just using it
Well,
to try to take ownership.
I mean, when 30 countries have tried socialism and they've all failed miserably, I mean, and then their excuse is, well, they haven't tried democratic socialism. It's another ploy to make certain people up the higher upper tier rich and everybody else down and out.
So question. When I say I want to democratize the workplace, what do you think about that? What do you think about, if not taking businesses that currently exist, what do you think about, increasing the infrastructure to support new businesses being created that don't have that are owned by everyone working there, and there's a voting system, if we want to have a CEO, then every one of the workers every 2 years votes for the CEO of the business. And
I like that idea.
Okay, so
I would support.
That is what market socialism is. Some market socialists want to make it, they want to approach it from the perspective of, let's take all current businesses and make it this way. I think that is not going to happen. And I mean, while I would like an economy where all businesses were run that way, I think making that change right now would be destructive, because we need to set up the infrastructure to support it, because right now there's not. But ultimately that's what market socialism is about, is democratizing the workplace, making it so that you have a say in what goes on and all of that. Authoritarian socialism has never worked. There are some socialist countries that work better than others. I look to Vietnam, for example. They handled COVID extremely well. They've been growing in their economy. General welfare of their people has increased since the war. And there's problems. There's definite problems that need to be addressed, and there's authoritarian issues that need to be corrected. But they're moving in a direction of democratizing their system and having more political parties. And I think Vietnam is moving in the right direction. So, that's one example that I would point to, as not something to necessarily emulate, but to suggest that not all socialism ends up like Venezuela. I would also say that Venezuela is an interesting case, because back previously, when the last I guess elected, but it wasn't really a legitimate election, was running it, they were doing pretty well. They nationalized their gas, and that was producing a lot of money for the country. And our system, our capitalist gas companies didn't like that, because they were competing with way less prices than what our gas systems had available. So what happened after Chavez, or was it Chavez? No. One of those, whoever ran it, he died. And the new guy came in. As the new guy came in, we implemented shitloads of sanctions and cut tons of their income and their money. Now, yes, again, huge problems with the Venezuelan system. It was too authoritarian. Their democracy didn't work. But to say that it's 100%,
It always goes there in the long run, though. All these countries, it all went there. They all started with good intentions, but sooner or later, the wealth redistribution that they have, that's what they're talking about here in America, that everybody needs to be getting the same amount of pay. That's just going to stop people from working hard. And once that happens,
I do disagree with that. I don't think I think you're talking about like a universal basic income, right? Where every American gets like $1,000 a month. That's the Andrew Yang proposal. I don't think that I think that I don't think that discourages people from working. I think
if taxes are going to go up, like right now we pay approximately 26%. There's talk of by the end of next year, our taxes are going to be into the 52% realm. If I'm paying more money to my government and really not getting anything from it, I'm not gonna keep working my butt off for that. It makes no sense. I mean, here's a good analogy. Let's just say Tom's got an apple tree. He's an apple tree farmer, okay, and he makes apple trees, and he's got a lot of apples. Well, our government says, well, that's not fair that these people don't have apples, so our government takes his apples and gives it to the people that don't work for it. Well, after a while, Tom says, I'm going to quit growing apples if they're just taking it away from me, and then nobody has apples. That's a pretty good analogy of how socialism works. Same with another good analogy is take a classroom, and they did a socialist project. They had everybody take a test without knowing it. They were going to give everybody a C. Well, the people that worked hard, that studied hard, that prepared hard, got a C. They were a little upset. And well, the people that didn't work hard got the same C. They were all good with it. So the next test comes along. And now the people that worked hard didn't work as hard or study as hard because why? They're only going to get a C. The other people that didn't work at all, they worked even less. And now the average grade was a D. And now everybody's starting to get pissed off because now even the people that are used to getting a C for nothing are now getting a D. So they're mad. The people working hard are upset. And then by the time the third test goes around, the people that are working hard or studied hard, they quit doing it altogether. The other people, they didn't work any harder, and now the average test was an F. It just goes down because there's no.
I mean, I went to college, and when we were in college, they graded on a curve, and what actually happened was, like in a lot of the college, in the college that I went to, their curve, or actually the grade point average for everyone did go up. So, I mean, you can have that issue. And I think it's important to balance when you talk about like democratize or decommodifying certain industries, when you talk about providing certain amounts of welfare or income. I mean, there is a point where, like, if I'm giving you $100,000 a year, and you can live and save money and, have a good life, you're probably not going to do anything. But if I'm giving you just enough so that you're able to have some source of food, I mean, $1,000 a month is not enough to really have any sort of decent life in America. It's just not.
No.
So, I mean, I don't think anybody's really going to have I don't think anybody's going to really have that will to not work taken away from them. And I would argue that we don't even need to raise taxes to accomplish something like that. I mean, the fact is, we're spending trillions of dollars on war, on waste, on all sorts of like just bullshit. I mean, if you look at like what we spend on our military, right? We should like triple for what we're spending on our military. Our soldiers should be making triple to 4 times, 5 times what they're making. And that's because these companies get these contracts and they can charge us whatever the hell they want because they're contributing money to the politicians, and the politicians are then going to favor those contracts. So, like, and this is an example that AOC brought up. She talked about like a little gear, just one gear that costs, like, on the free market, costs about, like, I think it was like 20 something to make. And they were charging our government like $600 for just that gear. And so, for a small gear that goes in like a very specific, plane, and just that one instance, there's a markup of, 500% or whatever the calculation is. And that is rampant. I mean, we pay $300 a day for our military meals, for the meals that we feed members of our military. I'm all fine with paying $300. Like, if we want to give them $300 worth of food, I think our military, our soldiers should be eating like kings. But those MREs and the food that they get in the military is not worth $300 a day per person. That's ridiculous. And so, I mean, there's so much spending.
I'm only getting about.
Go ahead, Goose.
I'm only getting about half what you say. You're up pretty bad.
Oh, is it better now?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So, what was the last you heard? What was the last you heard? Oh,
he dropped out.
But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of wasteful spending. There's a lot of pork, obviously. I mean, I think that's with, every government. But I always take the argument. He's back. Thank God. You good? You back?
I'm back. I
Okay,
can hear
good.
you. I can't see you. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I got a quick little thing. Do you know how AOC got into her position? Are you familiar with that?
I mean, yeah, I paid attention to her campaign.
There was a called the Justice Democrats, and they actually hold audition tryouts in districts that they think they can win. And AOC was a bartender. We all knew that. But her brother signed her up to this audition, and they liked her. And then they campaign for her and find a way to get her in these districts that they know they can win. So a lot of what AOC says isn't AOC's brain. She's being told this by this radical Turkish group called the Justice Democrats, and they've actually got 50 people in our.
I know who the Justice Democrats are, like, pretty solidly, and I actually contribute to them. So I know what the Justice Democrats are.
You should look into that a little more.
No, they were started by Cenk Uygur and Kyle Kalinske, two YouTubers. One who started the Young Turks. So that's where you're getting Turkish group from, but they're not a Turkish organization. And both of those guys have dropped out of that organization. The Justice Democrats is no longer affiliated with either Cenk Uygur or Kyle Kalinske. So because Cenk Uygur had some issues with how he treated women, and the rest of the organization said no. And Kyle said, well, look, I don't want to just associate myself with the group. So he left. So as far as that organization, they do have people send out applications, and they do, talk, and you have to meet certain standards. You have to not take any corporate money, which I think is important for all of our politicians, to not take any corporate money. To be a Justice Democrat, that's their requirement. They also have some other stances that you have to take, but you are not allowed to take corporate money in your campaign. Only small dollar donations.
I thought there was only one person in Congress, Matt Gaetz, that brags about he's the only one that does not take. Well, I'm talking super PAC money, I guess. I don't know if that's the same thing.
Super PAC money. So they don't. So Justice Democrats don't take super PAC money either. Super PAC money is essentially a way for corporations to invest without being seen investing. And thanks to Citizens United by the Supreme Court, through super PACs, you can invest an unlimited amount of money. Before that, you were able to any one person was only able to contribute $25,000 to a particular campaign. And now, because of that Supreme Court decision, you can create a super PAC which has no affiliation with the candidate, and then you can throw in, an infinite amount of money into a campaign.
Yeah, isn't that how Omar gave her husband or whatever like $1.3 million that she was under investigation for? Bottom line, these people don't love America. It's obvious. They say it every day how they hate America, and that's we're a racist country, and it's they're.
So do you think? Here was a question I was going to ask. You said that you're saying simultaneously that the Democrats are a party of the Ku Klux Klan and welfare systems that have fucked over the Black community, and at the same time, you're saying that this country is not a racist country. Do you see the incongruity there?
I think your average person all across the country is not a racist person. I think we all have a little racist to us, whatever. But I think all in all, what I saw traveling the country 100 times, every Walmart I went to, every restaurant I went to, every business I went into, there were Blacks, there were Mexicans, there were Asians. They're all working, all getting along. I think your average person is not a racist person. Do I think the Democrat Party? I mean, Joe Biden's one of his best buddies was the Grand Poobah or whatever of the KKK, and yes,
right. And then he left and denounced the Klan and all that. Yeah, no, I know, but you still.
I mean,
yeah. So yeah. No, I do think Democratic elite and the Republican Party elite are racist. I do.
Perhaps probably, maybe. I don't know. I think we're over it. I think we're past that. I think they keep wanting to hash it and bring it back up and to separate and divide us. That's their whole plan. So we're all separated. We're not getting along. We're not communicating to one another, and we're not powerful. That's their whole game, man. Keep us separated and divided. Yeah.
Hold on, Prohfit. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, my bad.
Go ahead, Goose.
Use media to you anytime there's a shooting, an officer shooting of a white man or black man, it's always officer shoots black man. It's never officer shoots white man. It's just officer shoots man. But anytime there's a black related, officer shoots black man. They're just using this propaganda to keep us separated and divided. So we're not. If we all kind of came together and worked one as a team, all of us little people, we'd be powerful. They can't have that. So their whole goal for 100 years is to keep us separated, and they use racial bullshit for that. Propaganda. They're using man against women, male toxicity, and feminism. They're supporting all this stuff to keep us fighting with one another. Instead, if we could be powerful. They don't want that. The higher global elites don't want any of that, and that's why they constantly use the media to spread strife. But all in all, if you look across this dang country, it's you might have certain parts here that got some hillbillies, or you might got some places in a big city where the blacks are prejudiced, but all in all, your average person is not prejudiced, man. If you're a good person, you work hard, you don't steal, you're not out to hurt nobody, man, to each his own. I think 90% of the people out there in this country are like that. I don't think we're racist. Simple case in point, why is everybody on this globe trying to get to America? If we are such a racist country, why is everybody arm and limb trying
not everyone is trying to get to America?
1.3 million legal immigrants every year for the last 25 years we've let in.
Yeah,
let in
okay. And
legal.
how many have left?
That I don't know. I'd venture to guess not much, because capitalism works out for a lot of them hardworking people. And now if you can just jump your fence, you can just jump the fence illegally. That's got to make a lot of these legal immigrants very upset, seeing the Democrat allowing our borders just to be open and allow illegals to jump our fence and get $3,200 a month and free housing and free schooling for not doing any of that, not going through the process, not going through the testing, not learning how to speak English, not spending the money to be a legal citizen. It's just that it's costing us taxpayer money, $220 billion to support this illegal immigrant business. And on the flip side of this, all the money that these people are making, mostly under the table, tax-free, they send it back to their countries and back to their families at about $250 billion a year. So every year, this illegal immigrant's costing this country about $500 billion a year. Not to mention our schools are getting overcrowded and overpopulated. So much human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking. And I come to realize the reason why. There's a couple of reasons why. But the black population has woken up to the Democrat propaganda. And now the Democrats need a new black, and the illegal immigrant is the new black. They come in, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. You just vote Democrat. That, and if they can overpopulate certain counties and certain districts in, say, California and Arizona and Texas, they can add another representative into Congress. And that's their whole plan. It's quite an evil, deceptive plan that they're doing, and it has nothing to do with America first. They could give a crap about America. I've never really seen the Democrat Party support the Constitution. I think they've hated the Constitution since day one.
So just so we're clear on net migration, between 2018 and 2019, the net migration, and this is according to USCensus.gov, the net international migration to the United States was 595,000. So when you factor in people who have left and people who have come, we've added about 600,000 people in between 2018 and 2019. That was a drop from the decade's high of 1,047,000. So from about 2016, between 2015 and 2016, immigration plateaued and has been dropping since. So immigration had been decreasing from 2016 all the way down, and that's legal immigration.
Legal, yeah. But illegal has been rapidly growing. Up until last year, they put a halt to it for about a year. The wall does work, but now literally 55 to 7,500 people a day. They're filling a football stadium every week of illegal immigrants coming into this country in the middle of a freaking pandemic. I'll tell you what the plan is. They're going to bring all these untested, unchecked people in. Corona's going to skyrocket again. They're going to shut us down and lock us down even more, killing what little small businesses are left. They're going to skyrocket our taxes. They're going to finish up trying to take our guns away. We're going to finally say screw off. We're going to revolt, and then it's going to be an all-out freaking kind of war. They're going to bring in the UN on our ass, and life as we know it's done. That's what I predict is going to happen within the next year.
Life as we know it will be done in a year?
Life as we know it, like the average is being free and not worrying about dying every day and what to eat. Yeah.
So essentially, when I talk about socialism and what I define as a socialist style economy and how we can get there in the next 60 years or so by doing it through just building up the infrastructure, you agree with that?
That part, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So when talking about socialism, we can, and like, so for example, like Bernie Sanders, um, he fights for market socialist or worker co-ops. He's done a lot of work supporting worker co-ops. Would you, at least on that one issue, would you be interested in like pushing forward to encourage worker co-ops as we move forward in our economic system?
I'd be interested in taking a look at it. And yeah, I mean, I definitely believe we got to have a fine line. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, both sides. I think there can be some good things in social if used. I think right now our biggest problem right now is our governments and the global elites, whether it be Bill Gates or the Soros or the Rothschilds, they're kicking it in high gear right now. I don't know if you understand this, but their whole central banking process, there's 3 countries left in the world that doesn't have central banking, and once they can connect those 3 countries left, they can connect a whole one world order, one world government. And
Right.
past 60 years, they've actually both sides got us into wars, and we tear down a country and then we rebuild it back up and we add central banking. And the 3 countries that are left are North Korea, Iran, and Syria. Well, they were trying to get Trump to go to war in Iran the last 4 years, but he didn't do it. He actually made friends with North Korea, and they hated him for it. And now, what's the first thing Biden does? Sends a bunch.
So you like that he's friends with one of the most authoritarian socialist or communist governments in the world?
I would rather him make friends than be enemies. I'm a firm believer if Hillary Clinton would have became president, we would have been in World War III and a nuclear war with North Korea within a couple of months.
Well, I do think Hillary Clinton was a war hawk. And at least Trump's rhetoric on not going to war was probably, the thing that I liked the most about him. There's a whole hell of a lot I didn't like about him, but his anti-war rhetoric I definitely did. The problem is he did increase drone strikes. Obama had like the greatest rate of drone strikes of any president, and then Trump increased it even further. I criticized Obama for drone strikes. I criticized Trump for drone strikes.
I don't believe. I think his first few months he did use a lot of drones, but Obama's kind of famous for having an average drone strike like every 37 minutes of his presidency.
Here, I'll look up the rates. Go ahead.
But so it's more of the global elites. To me, Bill Gates and George Soros. If you track everything bad about America, it always goes back to one of those 2 guys. I've learned that Bill Gates wasn't just that geeky, nerdy kid that invented the microchip in his garage. And what a great story that was, right? I now know that Bill Gates' father was great friends with the Rothschilds and Rockefellers. Bill Gates' father helped start Planned Parenthood. Bill Gates'
father helped start Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, he helped fund it. He was best friends with the actual lady that. Well, not bad. I don't know best friends, but yeah, he had a large helping in making Planned Parenthood happen. Then you look into Bill Gates and how much baby DNA and baby not parts, but baby DNA and fetal tissue that they use in all their vaccinations. I could get really deep real quick. You start looking into. Are you familiar with what adrenochrome is?
Yeah, I know the drinking baby juice to stay young.
Yeah. Well, what better way to adrenalize a baby than to rip it from its mother's womb? So, and do you know that a 3-month fetus, aborted fetus, goes for like $75,000 on the black market, and a 9-month-old fetus?
Where do you get that information? Where are you getting all this information from?
And part where I'm starting to save more stuff, and I'm starting to learn how to do links, but a lot of my stuff is just what I've read over the past 4 years, and most of it gets taken down off the internet within an hour, and I can never find it again. but it's there. It's pretty much factoid. That's the problem nowadays too with our information system. You can't Google anything and trust what you're getting out of Google. It
Right.
helps sometimes, but you can't trust it. Google is right up there with like in my mind CNN. I mean CNN. I try to watch CNN just to see what the other side's. I know they're lying to me within a minute. So it's hard to get our facts because we truly don't know. I feel like I've got a pretty good keen eye to when I know. I like watching old videos. You can kind of, you got proof right there of what they actually said, how they looked when they said it. But yeah, that's our problem right now.
The real important thing when it comes to videos is because they also do make deep fake videos, and they do all those like really clever cuts. So like if I say there is no way in hell I would ever support beating a woman, they could just go, I would support beating a woman.
And they edit and cut stuff left and right.
Yeah, so we have to be really careful about that.
But I'm pretty sure I got the pretty good gist of, Bill Gates. He's a head funder of the CDC, the WHO Foundation. He is also one of the head funders of DARPA, and that's who's making all of our chemtrails in our skies that they're putting in aluminum, mercury, all kinds of metals, and they're claiming that what they're doing is they're deflecting the sun's UV rays away from Earth to keep us from heating up. That's what they're telling us now. What they're doing, I call bullshit. I think they're they're hurting our immune system. I don't know the exact keywords to it, but they're depleting our immune system. That way, more of us are getting sick, and that way, big pharma and all the pill people make their money, and then that way Bill Vaccine and all his cronies with vaccines make their trillions of dollars. It's a pretty sick, twisted deal going on, and I wish more people would understand it.
I mean, I just really worry about a lot of that stuff because it's really easy when you are delving into certain pieces of information. People are going to be creating a narrative, and and there's a huge issue with confirmation bias. So like when it comes to me accepting a lot of those assertions, I have a hard time because I want to make sure that I have like I read like college documents, I read like stuff where statistics are checked and rechecked by people who study that issue. So it's kind of, unless I have the information in front of me where I can know it's verified info, I choose not to believe it because there's so much other shit that I do know is verified, that is bad, that's happening, that we need to address. And if I follow every rabbit hole, I'll end up so depressed that I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And so, I've got to focus on what's in front of me. And for me, what's in front of me is, we need to protect our environment. I have asthma. We emit a whole bunch of CO2 into the air. It makes it harder for me to breathe. There's a country in Indonesia that's literally only like an inch above water, and over the past few years has been slowly disappearing, and that's going to be the first amount of climate refugees. As that gets worse, as things of that nature keep happening, as more droughts, more fires, more I'll definitely read his work. So as more droughts and more fires occur, there's going to be more refugees. And so, I mean, if we think we have an immigration problem now, we need to be doing things to prepare for that. And I think, getting lost in who's manipulating what, I can't prove it one way or the other. Like, I can't tell you that you're wrong, and you can't, necessarily tell me that it's 100% factual. So I'm just going to deal with what I have in front of me, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. It's no secret that the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Payseurs, the Merrill Lynches, the Goldman Sachs. I mean, it's no secret that they've been in control of central banking and oil and across the world.
Yeah, and in a more aggressive socialist, if we were to do market socialism, but in a more aggressive way than I'm talking about, I'd want to take Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, DuPont, all of these companies. I'd want to take it from them, and I'd want to give it to the workers.
That'd be great.
So for me, that's what socialism means. So like when you say that you're pro-capitalist, I hear pro keeping them in their positions of power, pro keeping Merrill Lynch as a private enterprise, pro keeping
that's crony. That's the capitalism that's been abused.
Right. I just feel like go ahead.
I think what we've really suffered from the last 10 or 15 years is the lack of accountability. No one gets in trouble for anything anymore.
Absolutely.
So people are allowed to get away with anything nowadays. It seems like nobody gets found held accountable. That goes all the way down to teaching our kids, instead of, well, he's acting weird, let's put him on some Adderall or some sort of pill. Just you teach him better, or you train, you parent better, or teaching our kids everybody gets a trophy no matter how hard you worked. Everybody gets a trophy. That's just teaching everybody that you don't have to work that hard and you can reap benefits without working that hard. And to me, capitalism is the harder you work, the more you should benefit from it. And that's capitalism. Now, has that gotten abused? Totally. The big corporations, Bezos and Walmart's, and the big box stores, they've totally, completely abused it. So
yeah,
I
think a localized capitalism would be okay. Where like I used to say, before I went into socialism, I used to believe in changing like the tax structure so that rather than it being income increases the amount of things that a company is taxed, that you change it to like local. So, or how far away. So if you produce a product in the community that you're selling it in, you pay like no or very, very little tax. And then the further away you sell the product from where you create it, the more tax you pay.
I like that idea.
That used to be like my philosophy, and I think it would be a much better world than we live in now. But I think essentially the problem is that capitalism encourages abuse. And if you don't have it basically requires a government to regulate it. Because if you don't have some sort of regulation on your capital, on your company, then all sorts of abuses happen. And I mean, we can point to before socialists fought for the 40-hour work week, or before socialists fought to get children out of coal mines, or before the socialists and unions fought for sick days. And I mean, like, those all have to be, like, people literally fought and died. I mean, the original rednecks were coal miners that unionized and were communists, that were shot and killed after taking over a coal mine because they were being they had 14-hour work days and were being paid dog shit. And those were the original rednecks. And then those with power turned that phrase into meaning, some sort of discriminatory term to undercut workers uniting and fighting against the powerful. And so I've actually had to unlearn using the term redneck because it just undercuts worker strength, and it undercuts a whole community of people. I mean, we need to support the workers in West Virginia. We need to support the workers in the Midwest. We need to support, all of us need to come together. So I mean, if you think that increasing the amount of businesses that have a democratized system, if you agree with getting money out of politics, just like maybe I don't know how you would want to do it, but for me, my way of getting money out of politics would be anybody running just gets a flat check from the government or from an organization that gives it the same amount to everyone regardless of party. And then they have to use that money in the most efficient way possible and run on the issues. And then there's no wheeling and dealing.
That would be terrific. I just don't see it happening because we've allowed our government to get too big and too powerful.
Like you were talking about, if we unite. Oh, you're muted.
Damn it. God damn it. Yeah, I was just going to say, let Goose finish his thought.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I think I pretty much finished. It's just, that too big a government. You said that capitalism promotes abusing the system. I think it's the same exact thing with socialism too. I mean, it's proven. 37 countries have tried it, and they've all went down in a blaze of glory. So it all always boils back down to too big a government, too many people that's not being found held accountable for their actions. So I wish we could. I wish we could, as a nation, come together and start holding people accountable for what the heck they've been doing. Like the whole Benghazi thing with them selling our weapons and then our soldiers dying and ambassador dying. That was
and Iran-Contra.
That was Obama selling our weapons for profit. It's proven that Hillary got paid and gave the Russians 20% of our uranium. It's proven that Obama gave $1.7 billion in cash money 10 days before he left his presidency to shut him up from telling the world that, hey, we got those weapons from you guys. So now we're worrying about Iran spending that money to buy uranium from the Russians to build nuclear war. I mean, that to me is the biggest treasonous action. Should be found. They should be hanging from a rope in jail at least, and instead they're walking around with making million, getting richer and richer. So until we can start holding some people accountable, holding our FBI and our CIA accountable, we now know for a fact that they were spying on President Trump for no reason, for fake dirt. We know that Hillary Clinton paid $20 million to the Russians to dig up dirty dirt on Trump. We know all this. But the problem is our corrupt FBI and DOJ that was weaponized through the Clintons and even probably the Bushes, that now we can't trust our DOJ, our CIA, our FBI. We now know that George Soros has used his money and influence to get 37 district attorneys put in all these big cities. So that's why people aren't going to jail for raping, robbing, stealing. They're just going, the bail reform crap. And so,
I mean, I 100% support bail reform, but go ahead.
How? I mean, if a guy robbed a bank in New York, he got caught, he got put in front of the judge, he let him out. The next day he did it, and he did it the next 5 straight days. He tried robbing a bank. These people don't learn their lessons. There's no accountability. If you don't get smacked and put in jail for as much as jumping a turnstile, in a subway, that same person that jumps that turnstile to get in the subway for free is going to be that same guy that steals a lady's purse, or that same guy that's going to be breaking into a house. So there's no accountability.
I just don't think punishment should be based on how much money you have. I think punishment should be based on the crime.
Totally.
So
now,
I don't think bail should be a thing.
The bank, but since you're broke, you don't have to go to jail. So that's the exact opposite of what you just said you agreed with.
No. Essentially, bail reform is taking bail out of the process. So essentially, if you're going to get let out before your trial date, when you get arrested, it's based on your flight risk instead of based on how much money you have and your flight risk.
In your perfect world, yeah, but they're not putting people in jail in New York and in California and in Oregon and in Washington.
Well, I mean, I live in California, and I live under George Gascon, and people are still going to jail.
Doesn't sound like it to me. Sounds like he's letting a bunch of pedophiles.
Well, I'd like to see the actual information on that, but everything I've seen shows that people are still going to jail, because when you get out on bail, or when you get out without bail, you still have to show up to your court date, and then once you're tried by a jury or by a judge, then you go to prison. And I mean, that seems fair to me. I don't think that a rich pedophile should have an advantage over a poor pedophile. I think both of them should have the same punishment.
Totally.
So,
but
I mean, and I mean, there's problems with every system. So,
I mean, look at Epstein and all of Hollywood that visited, and we all know. A lot of people don't want to believe it, but we all know what went on that freaking pedophile island, that orgy island.
And I mean, Trump was his best bud, so
No, he wasn't. I mean, a lot of people think that Trump actually kicked him out of the Mar-a-Lago resort, and was actually one of the few people that actually worked with the authorities to.
Okay, I mean, we could go back and forth on that all day. But he
doesn't have flight logs being on the Lolita Express times like Clinton.
No, well, yeah, I mean, lock them all up, for that shit. I mean, if you're on the plane, if you partied with them, if you're on the plane, if you did a conversation where you said, "Oh, Epstein, he has a reputation of liking young girls just like me," if you affiliated with Epstein in any way, shape, or form, I want you under full investigation. And if anything is found, I want you in jail for as long as fucking possible, because honestly, that shit is not acceptable.
Yeah, and sadly is we're starting to realize that it's going on at an alarming rate through Hollywood, the global elites, politicians. It's sickening, and there's no accountability. And I think those people that are running the show have gotten away with, spying on Trump, to impeaching him for stuff that Joe Biden's on tape doing, a quick pro quo, to cheating in this election. They got away with it all, and it's all going to be buried. Now, to me, the sky's the limit. So there's no accountability and limits. So I think we're pretty screwed.
Essentially what I'm figuring out is, in general philosophy, we agree on a lot of solutions to the problems that we have.
I think so.
The problem is media manipulation on both sides. Where I get my media information, shows a lot of bad shit that Republicans are doing and a lot of bad shit that conservatives are doing, and discredits your information. And where you're getting your information does the same for where I'm getting my information. Right?
Yep.
And that is keeping us from doing the fucking things that we both just agreed that we should do. And I'm sure there's a lot more.
Yeah,
you know, we're apparently on completely opposite ideologies, and yet we agree on, you know, some of the most essential shit.
Right.
And yet we're not getting it done.
No.
Because we're arguing over Trump or some shit.
When you're talking about, you know, the media or our information, I mean, you start looking into it. You can't trust really Google. You can't trust Yahoo. You can't trust, you know, anything on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. But all of that is all heavily censoring us on the right, the conservatives,
and it's censoring the left as well.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of the censoring of the left.
Yeah,
I really don't. I mean, I don't hear of any politicians on the left banned from social media, but our president of the United States got banned from social media.
Right, because a lot of the do you see a lot of Communist Party politicians, you know, on the media? Do you see a lot of people who you know, talk about revolution on the media? Like real revolution, not you know, the soft Bernie shit, but real revolution? No. I mean, when you look at like COINTELPRO and how they did the Black Panthers, who were a leftist group, they gunned them down. They dismantled it, arrested, you know, did everything they could to dismantle strong Black people. You know, they put in, when the Bloods and Crips were getting started as a replacement to the Black Panthers, they got infiltrated by organizations sending in drugs into those organizations to corrupt them and turn them into gangs. You know, I mean, they do this to the left too. It's just they've been doing it to the left for so long that they've cleared out most of our radical and most of our like really forward thinking individuals. Sure. Like, I mean, I can't say, you know, on YouTube or Facebook, if I like start talking about, you know, criticizing anything about America, I get flagged. I said, I made a joke that because 35% of Americans can't point out where the United States is on a world map, that most Americans are stupid. And they've banned me for 2 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I literally just said, you know, obviously I'm white, right? So I was on Facebook and there was a video of like a bunch of white people doing something dumb. And I said, fucking white people. They banned me for a day.
I got in trouble for that same exact thing.
Yeah.
I've actually put in Facebook jail 95 times. So
I've been not 95, but I've been in Facebook jail about 6 or 7 for really dumb reasons.
Yeah. And I guess we're touching on the point where I wish the average normal person like you and I could understand that we're being manipulated and propaganded and programmed to hate each other and not want to work with each other.
Right.
I wish the average person could just figure that out. And I've tried so hard to make people understand that wherever I go. And most people don't want to talk about it. Most people don't want to deal with it. And so therefore those people are winning. And
well, and I mean, so for me, right, I do believe that not every person in America is racist, right? But I do believe that there are systems set up in America that disadvantage Black people by both Democrats and Republicans. You know, I feel like they misrepresent our histories and everything as well. And I feel like there's things that need to be fixed in order to even the playing field for black and white and brown. I think there's things that need to be fixed to even the playing field on the gender level. But I think those things, it shouldn't be something that drives division. I think it should be something that drives unity. I think when we talk about, addressing police corruption and addressing police abuses, and we talk about, hey, there's a racial element here. I think, if we can all just agree, okay, there is a racial element, and in addition to the racial element, there's just a problem with police abusing their authority,
Okay, let me
white,
stop.
black, whatever.
I agree. There's instances and times that does happen. But if you look at the stats and the facts, on the average, the last 3 years, cops have killed an unarmed black person 9 times a year. 9 times a year is all, an unarmed black person. You look into all those situations, and all but like 2 are pretty justified. White people are killed 42 times a year. Unarmed white people are killed 42 times a year by police officers. 9 times. Now you start looking at the percentages, and you're like, well, okay, white people make up about 55% of the population in America. Black people make up 13% of the population. But now you go to the big cities, and you look at 93% of all crime in the top 20 cities are black, and 87% of that is black on black. So, and then if you look across the whole country, 57% of the crimes are done by a black person. Now, you could say some of them are racially motivated, but bottom line, that's happening. They're committing crimes. So it's really not as bad as they're portraying it out. It's not like. How about
right. I hear what you're saying there.
George Floyd was high on meth, was passing counterfeit $100 bills,
$20 bills.
$20 bills. He would been in prison like 5 times. His last stint was holding a pregnant lady, a gun to her belly down in Houston.
That's a false narrative. He didn't do that.
Yes, he did.
Somebody else did.
Oh.
He was the driver.
Or that other guy that was it in Wisconsin, who the cops were called to the girl's house, who called the cops because a month earlier he sexually assaulted her, and he said he had a gun, and he wouldn't listen to the cops, and he reached into the car and they shot him. I mean, you got to listen to the cops. That was not racially motivated whatsoever. But what the media do? The media got the whole country in an uproar. But
right.
Where I come from, if I don't listen to the cops, they got the boots in my head right now. And if I'm walking away trying to reach for something in the cop car, I'm getting shot. And no one's going to say, oh, that was racial motivated. It's again, accountability. We're not holding a lot of these people accountability. We're so quick to just call it racial this, racial that. I mean, I've been around across the country. We've got black mayors. We got black police chiefs. We got women police chiefs, women mayors. We've got governors. We've got a vice president now, black woman, well, colored woman or whatever. It's just not that bad. I mean, all of our sports, black people are making hands over fist way more money than the white people. So, you got plenty of black entertainers. You got plenty of black actors. If a guy wants to make something of it, I don't care what color you are, you can do it in America now.
Do you think that it's harder?
No, nowadays, no. In fact, it's probably
not at all.
In fact,
it's easier.
No,
as a black person.
That black kid that grow up in the south side of Chicago or in some project area with barely a mom and no dad. I mean, I pretty much was that kid up in Montana. I barely had a mom, no dad, no family. I raised myself, so I have every reason to complain and bitch that I didn't have anything and where's my welfare or where's my this or that, because I didn't have nothing, but I got off my butt and worked and made it happen. And anybody, no matter what color you are, if you want to actually do that, there is possibilities out there for you. There's trailer trash people in Montana that have a hard, that those white kids are going to have just as hard a time as your average black projects. But I just don't. We're over this. racism thing. It's just not. It's not as what they're portraying it. They're just wanting to say this to create strife. There's plenty of women in the workforce. Hell, Trump made 7 million jobs. 62% of them were held by women. You know, we had a woman in a space shuttle back in the 80s. It's just they're just bringing the strife up to keep us all pissed off at one another. That's all they're doing.
So I think what you're doing here is you're pointing out progress that people have been fighting for a very long time, and we are making progress. We're getting to a better place, but then you're using that progress to suggest we no longer need to keep working towards it. And I think
No, I don't mean to be that way.
that's just how it seems. I don't want to attribute anything to you that you don't believe.
I just don't see even in Montana, you know, black guy wants to get a job, black guy can get a job. There's no stopping him from getting a job. I mean, a lot of people think Montana's kind of a cowboy hillbilly state, but this state's really not racist state. I mean, granted, you got your backwoods hillbillies or whatever, I guess, but I've never seen this white supremacy they talk about so much. I know it's out there. I don't
I've
think
seen
it's
it
predominantly
personally.
out there. Huh?
I've seen it personally,
Yeah,
but
yeah. But you do it on the other side too with all the Asian gangs. Them people aren't as racist as they come. Black gangs, they hate white people. So I mean, it goes both ways. But your average person just isn't. Your average person is just a good person. If you're a good person, we're a good person. We can work together.
I agree
They're
with
just
that.
making this strife. Yeah.
I agree with the
So,
I agree with the statement that we can get along.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. Do we always strive for betterness and be better? Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not opposed to that at all. But you know, the feminism crap that goes on, they're pushing that way too far. The gay and lesbian and transgender stuff, they're, you know, hey, be to each their own. Be you, but don't expect me to have to live in your world. You know, that's what I'm kind of getting sick of. This whole transgenderism with boys in sports and girls sports. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If you have a 12-year-old kid that doesn't know if he's a boy or a girl, you should probably be in jail for child abuse and not doing your job as a parent. You know, boys are boys, girls are girls. Simple fact in nature. Yeah, you got your slim percentages of, you know, people that were born whatever.
Well, that's what we're talking about with transgender. We're talking about like 1%.
Yeah,
like,
that's all.
And we're just saying that, you know, those people should.
I had a good friend who's a good father, so he had to pull his girl out of school, his 14-year-old daughter, because she came home wondering, she didn't know if she was a boy or a girl. I mean, that's what our schools are teaching us, and it's only weakening our society. And China loves this. China loves us being weakened like this and taking our male toxicity away, and you know, killing whiteness and making people feel sorry for being white. And all this, all it is weakening this country, and China loves it.
So, I mean, essentially, on one hand, you're saying that if we all come together, like, we could get a lot of really good things done, and I support that. And you're suggesting that, you know, there's a lot of division being propagated.
Yep.
And at the same time, you know, you're identifying groups of people and saying that they shouldn't be teaching about the existence of these groups of people. They shouldn't be promoting certain individuals, or and what those individuals would say, being allowed to feel safe in the community. So do you see how that could possibly be interpreted as increasing division and not promoting unity when you know, you're denying systemic racism, for example, or you're suggesting that trans people, kids that feel that they're not quite what their anatomy says they are, their hormones are different. They Do you see how that creates subgroups? And rather than just if we accept people for who they are, then we can all come together and achieve the goals that we need
Oh,
to
I'm
achieve.
all about accepting people for who they are. I just ask them not to press their issues on me. And there's a lot of people like me that feel that way. I mean, yeah, you can
Right.
be, but why do you got to walk down a street in a parade half naked and swing your dong in front of a 5-year-old kid and pronounce your gayism? That's taken a little far in my book. I mean, be gay, that's fine. I don't care. Be a trans, I don't care. But don't go look at me and I need special treatment because I chose to be this way.
So
A lot of that's happening.
so do you think that when men and women walk down the street and like make out and stuff, do you think that that's them bringing their lifestyle and throwing it in the face of a gay person?
I don't think so. I don't think your average person is doing that to say, "Hey, let's do that." They're just
Right.
doing it.
So if straight people, which there was a up where I'm from, there was a straight pride parade, where they were carrying signs like "God hates fags" and "Burn the fags" and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Do you think, without the negative signing, do you think that straight pride parade would be rubbing that in the face of gay people?
I think all those parades are stupid on any side, either side. But yeah, I guess like if you got people toting signs saying, kill fags or whatever you're saying there, that's not appropriate. I wouldn't agree with that whatsoever.
Okay.
Not at all. I mean, I wish we could do away with all this whole pride and this history month, that history month. I wish we could just get along with Americans, and
Yeah.
we're all in the same boat here. And hey, if your sexual preference is gay, fine, be it. Don't press it on me. I'm good with it. I'm not pressing nothing on you. I don't believe you should have any extra advantages, but I also agree that people need to be educated a little bit with it. I think it's pretty simple. I think we're all blowing everything out of proportion way too much, and everybody wants a free handout due to their way they're being in life. Whether they're gay, want a special privilege, trans want special privileges, and it's just like I don't know.
I have a question and a point here from Dark from the Twitch stream. World leaders and I want both of your opinions on this too. World leaders and politicians have compared the events of today, like COVID, the migrant crisis, the economic downturn, to Nazi Germany and the Holocaust. They have said many times a lot of these events are comparable to what occurred in the Second World War. I am genuinely curious what your take on this issue is. It is fair to compare the events of today to what occurred in the Second World War. For example, people have said the migrant crisis is comparable to the Holocaust, which in my opinion is not a valid comparison. And yet it seems today all these leaders want to do is continue to compare everything that is bad to Germany and the Holocaust. But is that fair to say, or should leaders of today disavow those who make this comparison? I will make this point as well. From what people have said about RBIs, it at times makes me believe that honestly think the Holocaust created COVID or caused the global economic downturn of today, of that somehow climate change or the migrant crisis of today originated in Germany during Nazi rule. I know that this is wrong, but on how much But with how much I hear these comparisons, it makes me believe people think this is not an RBI issue.
Before we get into it, can I get a definition of what RBI stands for?
Yes.
Yeah, let me try to look it up.
Well, you look it up. I'll give you my take. I truly believe that we're right in the same line of what happened with Nazi Germany, between suppressing media outlets, only showing one side, fixing elections, trying to take our guns away, and to silence. I mean, they're silencing a lot of people that are trying to speak out. They're using what Hitler had was the brown coats, and in my opinion, that would be kind of an Antifa, the Black Lives Matter movement. And I truly believe we're going right down there, and that's why we've allowed our young children to tear down our statues and make everybody kind of forget our history. I firm believer if you don't look back and remember your history, whether it's good or bad, if you don't remember it, you're gonna repeat it. And we're going right down that road of repeating exactly what Hitler did in Germany. Right down the right, I mean, to a T. Right now we are. So I know a lot of world leaders, a lot of Germany leaders after Nazi Germany happened. We brought a lot of those scientists over from Germany, and they've actually been working on a lot of top secret stuff, including, I believe, the coronavirus and all kinds of viruses. They've mutated these viruses to make them more deadlier. They claimed so if anything was to come out, that they know how to fight it. But I still wonder, why would you ever make a virus more deadlier than it is? But they are doing that, and I believe it got out, and I believe it got out on purpose with the help of George Soros, Bill Gates, CDC, China. I think it was a conglomerated effort to do exactly what they did, to shut down the economy, to separate and divide us, to keep us away from one another. And then their whole plan is to weaken us to where we're all needing government help, government assistance, and that's going to give them all the control and power they so desire.
All right. I guess RBI, he didn't mean to put RBI. His phone just automatically put it in there for him. So act like RBI isn't even in there.
Okay. So I would say that there's a fair comparison in the other way. I would say that there's a fair comparison to current day right wing fascism, not just in the United States, but around Europe and other countries around the world, to some of the same philosophies that backed up Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler and other fascist regimes that have existed, Pinochet, and so on. I would say that if somebody is comparing like and by the way, I am Jewish, so
Shalom.
if someone,
brother. Shalom.
huh?
Shalom. Shalom.
Thank you, Shalom. So if somebody is comparing like the immigration camps to the Nazi death camps, I think that that's obviously incorrect. We're not piling bodies. I do think that it's a correct definition to say that they are concentration camps. Death camps and concentration camps are two different things. So when you say that they're concentration camps, there's been many, many, many examples of concentration camps throughout human history. And essentially, it's a grouping of people based on some sort of arbitrary definition and consolidating those people and often having less poor treatment. So, these people are being consolidated. They're literally like in situations where they don't have heating, they don't have proper like health stuff. You had people getting sterilized, you had chemicals being used to clean up the facilities while the people using the chemicals are in hazmat suits, and the people in the building are still there without any protection whatsoever, and they got like third-degree burns. I mean, there's mistreatment going on in those facilities, and they're overcrowded, and there's too much concentration of people. And so, I mean, I think it's fair to call them a concentration camp. Most certainly not a death camp. We're not at the Holocaust level, and I that would be my opinion on that. But when it comes to overall comparing things to Nazis, I wanted to talk about Umberto Eco's list of 14 things, signs of fascism. And I want to kind of read those off, and then for anyone who's paying attention, they can decide which side more identifies it or more seems closely aligned to fascism. Number one is the cult of tradition. One only has to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi line of thought was nourished by traditionalist and I can't even say that word, and occult elements. Number two, the rejection of modernism, people that reject the Enlightenment or the Age of Reason. Number three is the cult of action for action's sake, saying that doing an action is being beautiful in being beautiful in itself. It must be taken before or without any previous reflection. Thinking is a form of emasculation. So if you're self-critical, you're less of a man. Number four, disagreement is treason. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. In modern culture, the scientific community praises disagreement as a way to improve knowledge, and to do that is to be treasonous to the fascist ideal. Number five, fear of difference. The first appeal of a fascist or prematurely fascist movement is an appeal against the intruders. Number six, appeal to social frustration. One of the most typical features of the historical fascism was the appeal to a frustrated middle class, a class suffering from an economic crisis or feelings of political humiliation and frightened by the pressure of lower social groups. Number seven, the obsession with a plot. The followers must feel besieged. The easiest way to solve the plot is the appeal to xenophobia. Number eight, the enemy is both weak and strong. The followers must be convinced that they can overwhelm the enemies, thus by a continuous shifting of rhetoric, rhetorical focus. The enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. That's why you get, I'll leave that. Number 10, contempt for the weak. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology. Number 11, everybody is educated to become a hero. In your fascist ideology, heroism is the norm. This cult of heroism is strictly linked with the cult of death. Number 12, machismo and weaponry. This origin of machismo, which implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits, from chastity to homosexuality. Since even sex is a difficult game to play, your fascist hero tends to play with weapons. Doing so becomes essentially like a phallic exercise. Number 13, selective populism. There is in our future a TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selected group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the voice of the people. Number 14, your fascism speaks newspeak. All the Nazi or fascist school books made use of an impoverished vocabulary and an elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments for complex and critical reasoning. So essentially, they're trying to limit the amount of words that we have and not have extensive definitions for specific things. So those are the 14 points of how you can spot a fascist movement. And in my opinion, a lot of those are on the right now.
That's funny because I see a lot of that in Antifa. They claim to be anti-fascist, but what are they doing? They're going around and they're silencing people. They're burning down businesses. They're harassing people that don't speak their ideology or on the right or support Trump. It's kind of funny to me that they actually are a complete fascist organization in what
I
they're
firmly
doing.
disagree, but okay.
Well, they're silencing the other side. Cancel culture.
Was any of that in the 14 definitions of fascism?
I believe there was one.
I don't see anything about
Silencing the other side.
nope. Cult of tradition, reduction of modernism.
That's what Hitler did. He silenced one side and pretty much.
Yeah, he silenced socialists.
All right. Yeah. He again from Twitch, Dark Ages again says I have even heard that climate change displacing millions is exactly as a systematic slaughter of Jewish people. One of my leaders in the town I live in has said this many times, which in my opinion is flat out wrong. So he wants to know if you guys what think that climate change displacing millions would be the same as systematically slaughtering Jewish people. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Go ahead.
I would say no. I would say that it increases the possibility of something like that happening. So, like, let's say there's a huge drought for about 10 years, right? And all the equator countries get hit by it big time. And then there's a mass refugee migration to America. I could see once that happens and there's multiple tens, hundreds of millions of people coming in, that camps start getting set up and things turn into that reality. I could see that happening, but not inherently, no.
Yeah, I guess my opinion is I'm a firm believer climate change is, for the most part, a big hoax to make us pay more money to get the global elites more rich. Myself, this Mother Earth's been around for 50,000 or for millions of years, and we've gone through ice ages, we've gone through heat stages. Our degrees the last 100 years has only been probably about 1.5 degrees off that it was 100 years ago. So a lot of this climate change is just an excuse for a lot of other things, for other people to make money. So I just can't relate anything Nazism or anything like that to global warming or climate change.
Okay.
All of our sea levels, for the most part, have stayed the same for a long time. The same beaches that we've had in the 50s are still there. The water level's not rising. We have our cold winters. We have our mild winters. We have our hot summers. Then we have a mild summer. It's more propaganda than it is anything else for everybody.
All right. We're about at that 2 hour mark. I'd rather leave with some viewers than leave with no viewers. So I think we're going to call it a close. If you guys want to make your closing statements, put your plugins if you have a YouTube channel, Facebook channel, Twitch channel, whatever. Go ahead and put them plugins if you'd like. Why don't you close us out, Prophet, and then we'll go to you, Goose.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, to sum it up, I think that we have to be careful when we talk about socialism and capitalism. We have to make sure that we are not promoting any sort of ideology that is going to take power away from people and put it in the hands of a few. I believe capitalism is doing that currently. And I think that if we follow a market socialist philosophy or a libertarian socialist philosophy, that we will remove the power from the hands of a few and give it to a whole bunch more people. And I think that that's better. I also think that we need to make the government transparent. I think that we need to decrease the power of the of any individual politician. And I think we need to make them more answerable to the people. And essentially, that's why I support libertarian socialism. I'm on Facebook, Chris Prophet Humphreys, and I will be creating a podcast at some point. I just got a new job, so.
All right.
Well, congratulations on that, Prophet, on your new job.
I'm a firm believer capitalism is the greatest tool that made the greatest country in the world. Yes, it has been abused by a big government, an overly powerful government. I agree with my counterpart here that we need to put the power back in the people's hands. All I've seen with socialism is a bunch of countries that have tried it and failed miserably with millions of people dying. What I gather socialism is right now is open borders, full government control, the government telling you where you can eat, what you can drive, no more private property. There's no incentive when the hard worker has to give away all of his profits to people that don't work. And in the long run, we all suffer, and only a few of the very top people prosper and get rich. Do I think we can use a little socialism in certain organizations in certain different areas? Of course, and it all boils down to we just have too big a government, and they're spending our money unwisely, and they're getting rich while all of us are suffering. So I guess that's about it. I don't really have any podcasts or anything. I'm just on Facebook. Always debating people wherever I can find them. And just wish that everybody could understand that the powers that be are separating and dividing us and putting racial strife and identity politics and keeping us all separated and divided. And until we can all realize that and come together, it's not going to get much better. But if we could all come together and realize that, we could be pretty powerful. And I think life could get pretty good for most everybody if we all just came together and worked together instead of hating each other. But that's about it.
All right.
Agreed with that last sentiment.
Very well said on both parts. Thanks everybody for watching, for commenting, for liking, sharing. All your engagement really helps this channel grow. Not only this channel, but our guests as well. So thanks for doing that, and we will see you guys next time.